What is up, preppers? Welcome to this week's live. And for sake of ease and accountability, this is a short one, guys. It's going to be 30 minutes. We're going to be on the spot. We're going to drop it like it's hot, and then we're going to bounce. And I say that because we're just going to riff tonight, and we're going to have some fun talking about things we love about prep. Now, if you're new to prep, if you've been around for a long time, we want to share with you guys one of our favorites. Check out our friends, and we're going to give you a discount code over at survivalfrog.com. Use code PrepperTalk, and you can save site-wide right now. Like everything on the site is going to give you a good discount across the board, 10% off. With that said, I want to talk about something I learned. I'm loving more and more every day rifles. But I got corrected on something the other day, and I was like, what? And I started doing some research. I thought like the AR-15 platform was just basically 223, 5.56, 223 Nosler, and that was kind of it. I had no idea that there was like the 6.5 Grendel, the 6.8 SPC, the 300 Blackout, the 300.
Yeah, all in kind of the same AR type platform, right?
You can even have a 9mm
AR-15.
Yeah.
They just have different cartridge choices, and I'm just like, and that's one of the things I love about prepping is like you can spend all this time learning something and then take a little break from it and then go back to it, and all of a sudden you learn a whole ton more. And that I think is one of my most favorite things about prepping is how much I continually am learning because I don't know it all. You can't.
Yeah, here's my 2 cents. The word love. First of all, I'm just going to start with that word. I am trying harder to use that only to reference people and not things, right? Or experiences or things that where the word love truly has meaning, right? Man, I just love this pistol, and I really like it, and like you're saying with ARs, or with rifles in particular, I totally get it. I'm a handgun guy right now. But I'm trying to take using words very seriously, right? Because that's how the universe was created. How God He spoke things and they came into existence. However that happened, I don't know. But so I'm really trying to focus on the correct meaning of words. Like we were talking earlier, where there's a certain word that begins with a V that I'm not using anymore, right? That has to do with today for certain reasons that we won't get into because it's not the topic. But
so what does your dictionary say about the word love?
Well, let's take a look here.
Like every time I think of a word, you've got me hooked on this. Every time I'm walking around in life and I think of a word, I'm like, oh, I need to get a dictionary like yours.
Yeah, so we're referring to the Webster's American 1828 dictionary for those of you who are not watching. And I think we forget that most of our listeners are on podcasts rather than on YouTube. And we're sitting here doing video looking at ourselves. And I'm holding up the Webster's American 1828 dictionary, which I recently purchased because it seems to me this has that the old world
words for our day. Like
what
words
they're changing.
What these words meant for real.
Exactly.
While you're looking that up, dude, I'm reading a book right now called The Psychology of Money, and one of the things that the chapters that I'm in is the best way is something along the lines of you have to plan for the things that happen when your plan doesn't go according to plan.
Okay, I like that.
and I was like, well, that's awesome because, and I just loved. To me, I don't know. I just get this warm, fuzzy feeling when I think about having resources, having extra, it's like a warm, fuzzy blanket to me. Like I know that no matter what, I have extra food, I have extra money, I have extra clothes. I have like when I have an abundance of things, and that to me, that's kind of like a prepper, if you will, because I have extra, I have food, I have gear. If anything happens, I know most of the time, I can take care of it. That just gives me a warm feeling inside. And it's like, I thought that was great. This book is talking about it's best to have to plan for when your plans don't go according to plan. And I'm just like, that's an emergency preparedness like mentality. And I'm reading it and I'm just giggling like this is so much fun.
Yeah, because you just absolutely relate, and I totally get it as well. I get a little bit of inspiration, and I mean, it probably sounds stupid. Okay, Shane, you need to do this, or you need to get this, be more prepared, and I just love. I'm going to use that word correctly. That feeling that I'm receiving inspiration, that I can recognize it and say,
Mhm.
yes, thank you for that little bit, that little something that is going to make my life a little bit better. Or, that might sound silly to some of you, but I get that all the time, and especially when I feel prepared and I have what I need for my family, and I'm on the right course. That
Mhm.
feeling is just awesome.
One of the ways I learn, if while you're still looking that up, one of the ways that I learn in my personal life is by oppositions or opposites. So sometimes I don't, and it's the old idea that you don't really truly respect something until you've lost it, or you don't really know if you loved it
Mhm.
until you lost it. And one of the things that I've found is that when my life is in total chaos and totally out of control, and I have no idea what's happening, and I feel like I'm in a free fall, my heart's racing. I have anxiety. I have panic. And that's not love to
Yeah,
me. That's not that warm, fuzzy feeling. But
yeah,
when I know that I have control, I have the equipment, I have the skill sets, I have whatever it takes to get through a scenario or a situation or an experience that I'm having, it just there's more confidence, there's more strength in that, and it just I don't know, just there's things in my life that are sometimes I feel like total chaos, and other things where I feel like everything's going great, like
yeah.
Utah Mike just shared that he tripped and slipped and broke his wrist today. I mean, I'm sure he's feeling a little bit in
Oh,
chaos.
dang.
Like, dang, how did that happen today of all days? Happy, Dave, to you. You broke your wrist. That sucks. And Mike, I hope you're
That's not-
feeling well. Hope you're recovering well and feeling better soon.
At least it doesn't hamper your ability to listen and watch, right?
And he's still typing. What a
Oh, look at
champ.
that. Left hand or right, Mike? Anyway, so looking at love here, obviously it's quite large, but a few things stood out to me here while I'm trying to listen and read at the same time. Um, okay, it's kind of goes along with what I was saying. We love our parents and our children on account of their connection with us. We love to retire to a cool shade in summer. We love a warm room in winter. We love to hear an eloquent advocate. The Christian loves his Bible. There's an object that kind of stood
Mhm.
out to me. That's something, right? But that makes sense. I love my scriptures. Absolutely. That makes perfect sense to use that word for that. In short, we love whatever gives us pleasure and delight, whether animal or intellectual. And if our hearts are right, we love God above all things. Look at that. Isn't that
There you
awesome?
go.
Isn't that awesome? I haven't read this before, so I'm just reading this right now. So that's very inspiring right there. I love that.
Yeah. One thing
That's
that leads me to think of as you're saying that is that love comes from, or is born from, in my opinion. There's several things that it can be born from, but one of the greatest things that love is born from is sacrifice. When we sacrifice for
Mhm.
one of the reasons why we will do anything for our kids, if we're if we're worth our weight as parents, is because of the sacrifice that we did to bring them into the world, the sacrifice that we made to feed them and to stay awake, not necessarily the three of us, but our wives for sure, staying awake night after night to keep them alive and well. And that sacrifice of service is something that I think preppers understand. To me, it's you understand that you've got to have For example, I'm going to sacrifice my money to have more preparedness. I'm going to sacrifice my time to learn a new skill versus going on that vacation or going out and buying the bigger car with the fatter rims and the bigger TV or whatever it is. Like, it's when you think about it, it's not really a sacrifice, honestly, but in the terms of how the world sees us, or maybe how society might see us, they think we're crazy, and that can show us that, hey, we're sacrificing some of the things that you're thinking for things that are actually more valuable, long term,
Yeah.
stronger, greater value.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I've about to our 30th anniversary. So I've been doing this for a while. And
Congrats, dude.
the thing that's kind of stood out to me when you talk about kids and so forth, Paris, is I think the harder part, or the more difficult part to recognize that you love your kids, is when you discipline them, when you stand up for what is right, when you show your love through different ways, not just, waking up, like I said, in the middle of the night and when your kids are sick or whatever, but it's, and I don't know how to put this into words properly, but it's when you can endure that pain of doing the right thing and not always making it easy, right, for your kids. They've got to learn hard lessons, and there's only one way to learn is they do it themselves. You can't do it for them, right?
So I've always thought of love as not capable unless you're caring for that thing, that person, that item, right? You can't really love God unless you're caring for your relationship with him, right? You can't really love your children because I believe love is really an actionable word, right? You can't really love your children without serving them, without devoting yourself to them. Like, I knew I loved my kids before they were born, but once they were born, it became very actionable for me. Whereas my wife, she's like, from the minute I felt them, like, I'm like, yeah, I loved them, but it wasn't really fully there yet. And so, like, yeah, do I love prepping? Well, no, I love the result of prepping. I love my preps. No, I don't love my preps. I appreciate my preps. I'm grateful for my preps. They give me peace. But yeah, I think out of all my preps, do I love any of them? No.
Would you give them up? I mean, if it came down to it, right? What would you sacrifice? I use that word kind of lightly.
Yeah. But I really like the biggest thing is like the purpose behind anything is, I think, more powerful than just doing it. Like, people who prep because they're worried about an event and only focus on that event, and then that event timeline passes, they're going to abandon prepping because they're like, well, oh, we're fine now, or oh, nothing happened. And we saw a lot of those with the Y2K, and we saw a lot of those
Trump.
Like, there's different seasons and times of life and in history where people prepped and don't prepped. The threat of Hillary Clinton getting into the White House, a lot of people started prepping, and then she didn't get in. They're like, I'm selling my stuff. I don't need it. And now if they want to go buy that, it's 3 times, 4 times, 5 times more expensive, which to me is just nuts. It's like, buy what you need, rotate it. Buy what you need, rotate it. And oh man, there's just so much peace in it.
There really is. Because that's another thing that I think about when it comes to the lifestyle is, peace, tranquility, temperance, all those different things. If you read in Galatians, those are all fruits of the Spirit. And you have, when you value something and you have good values and morals, and you're just ready for whatever life has or gives you, and you're not frivolous and just running around with following every pleasure that comes at you, but you're storing for the future, you're thinking, you're positively moving forward. I think those are all fruits of the Spirit. There's a lifestyle that comes with being well-rounded and being the kind of person that people can count on and rely upon. There's some things that, life happens to everybody. And there's some people in your lives. Think back on your own life. I do all the time on my own life. One of your biggest role, I mean, you might have some role models that are like sports fans or some of these other people, but those are, put them in their place. The real people, when it comes down to it, the real people that you're going to think about that were the most influential in your life are the ones that were able to endure with a lot of integrity, the different trials that life gave them. I, for example, I have so much respect for some people who've gone through cancer and not survived, but endured and made it through. I have so much respect for people who are kind, even when they're in a situation where they're not, they don't have much, or they give when they don't have much, or they're kind when they have every reason to be mean or angry. Those types of people who can do that, I feel like are also, our mantra is God, family, and country, and ready-mindedness and self-reliance. That's more than food and water and guns and ammo. That's a lifestyle. That's a whole mentality of being the kind of person that when things go wrong or things go sideways, you can be counted on. And I love the fact that I have so many good role models that I look to. And I love when somebody, honors somebody else for that sacrifice, there's just something about that. I just feel so good inside when I hear other people complimenting other people because they've just done a good job, and they've lived in integrity, and they've made their life worth emulating. Like, it's, to me, that's kind of a great ideal for anybody, not just that's just a great ideal for life.
Yeah, one thing I've really noticed or has stood out to me lately, the past year or so maybe, looking back on the things that I used to enjoy. Like, obviously when I was younger, I'd loved going off-roading, building a nice off-road vehicle, go off-roading, or go, I've done a lot of caving, a lot of hiking. I still love those kinds of things, but I watch or I see on YouTube or other people put so much emphasis on these things, and it just seems silly to me now. It just seems like, okay, I've experienced that, and I'm good. I don't need any more of that. And with this, we talk about prepping as a lifestyle. And I think that's really the only way, for me anyway, to put it into words, right? To say this is a lifestyle. No, you go back 100 years, that was life, right? And so we have to call it a lifestyle when it's truly life. So I guess that's really what I'm aiming for and trying to get to, is that prepping is my life. This is my life. It's not prepping. It's not this. It's not that. This is my life. This is how I live. And other ways just seem silly, just seem nonsensical. That, it doesn't make sense. Exactly.
Well, it's like, so prepping, for me, prepping isn't life. It's not a way of life. It's part of life, right? Just like if I neglect my relationship with God, that part of life creates a big vacuum. If I don't prep, that part of life creates a big vacuum. And what does vacuum do? It requires to be filled. And so we end up filling it with like vices. We fill it with things that might bring short-term joy, or most of the time we waste that void, becomes a waste, or it's like a black hole. Good things could be there, but instead it's just a nothingness, and you're investing into this nothingness. You might be chasing the dopamine, on social media or something like. But there's so much that you lose if you lose part of that life, right? And so it's not all of it, but it all balances out. It's weird because we did an episode a few weeks ago about balancing and prep, but like the more you do long term, like the easier it is to stay prepping. Like just doing little things every day, you're doing more long term, but you're really taking care of and covering all the bases. And yeah, you may feel like you're not getting very much done, but you look back after a year, you're like, wow, I've gotten a lot done.
Absolutely. Yeah. The word that came to mind when you started talking about that, Scott, is the word legacy. I want to say we as a culture, I'm very careful with how to use my words because I don't want to include myself when I say we. Our culture doesn't seem to have legacy in mind. What are we creating for our kids? What are we creating for our future? No, it's about instant gratification. Now let's do what makes me happy. Now I'm just worried about myself. But I find that part of prepping is, when you're building that homestead, when you're progressing through, you're building a legacy to leave behind for your kids. And I think that is a true sign of love. And, that used to be, and I'll look that word up next, legacy. That used to be, what our ancestors, that's was almost their whole life was about, is building a legacy for their family.
Well, other cultures have, we might have plans for the weekend in our culture here in America, but there's other cultures that have 100-year plans, 500-year plans. And it's like, that's prepping, for goodness sakes.
Yes.
The other day I had, my daughter came in and she needed some medicine, and I'm like, oh, it's in the medicine cabinet. And it wasn't there. And I was like, crap, dude, how did I miss that? Right. And
you ran out. Is that what you're saying? You didn't?
Yeah, we ran out. So I went, we got to go buy some more. And when I do, I'll go buy some extra. And that's part of being a prepper, and part of being somebody who lives a life is planning for the future.
Yeah.
We haven't mentioned Jordan Peterson in a while, but he talks about how we actually have several lives that we need to account for. One is the life we're living now. And if we plan to be alive next month, next year, in 5 years, we need to be taking that into consideration too. So when we make a choice today, we need to be thinking, okay, how is this going to affect me today, tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, 10 years, whatever your lifespan you feel like is going to be. And now, of course, you can't go out too far because there's so many changes that can happen between now and then, but you have to have at least a mental awareness. When you make a choice today, you have to be aware how that's going to chart you on whether a new path or continue you on the path you already are on and want to be on. And that's important. I think it's so important to think about the future, not just because you want to leave a legacy, because, to me, leaving a legacy is creating something that you can leave when you pass, but you got to, from here until then, you got to build that legacy. Yeah. And you got to be thinking, what decision do I make today?
Yeah.
What decision do I make today? Another great practice that I've had people teach me and different business coaches teach me, say, look, write your eulogy today. If you died today, what would you want people to say? So write that out. Like, what did you accomplish? What did you do? What did you build? What did you create? What were some of the things that are most important to you in your life? Write it out as though you're 70, 80, 90 years old and you died. Write it out as though you accomplished it all. And then like re-engineer, like begin with the end in mind, like backwards engineer that. Yeah. Okay, this is what I would love as my ultimate experience of dying at 90 to have read at my funeral. Now I'm going to go build that life.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'll read here what legacy says. It's actually pretty short. It says, a bequest, a particular thing or certain sum of money given by last will or testament. Good counsel is the best legacy a father can leave to his child. So
I like that.
And of course, I think that the best way to do that is through example, right? I love the saying, preach the gospel at all times, use words when necessary, right?
I love that.
And so I guess I've always found it difficult to talk to people. Obviously, it's easy to talk to you guys here, right? But but to actually get out, and of course, this has been a lifelong progress for me. But I am fully on board with, do what I do. Follow, just like the Savior. Follow the Savior's example. Do what he did, and even Moses was not good at speaking, right? I mean. And so I take comfort in that a lot too. So
really, for real.
So I want to jump back real quick. We had a comment kind of diverging a little bit from the topic, but I didn't want to let it go because I think it was a really good question. Eric asked, I'm not sure if I should prepare my home to be a safe haven or prepare to be on the run all the time if the rapture is post-trib. So there's two things I want to address on that. Like, one, the three of us, we don't believe in the rapture theology,
as in the way that many others do, right?
Yeah, the same way others do. Like most theologically, and I won't go too deep because I can go way off. But most people believe they're going to be pulled out before things get too bad, and they won't have to deal with it. And there's the evidence for that in the scriptures just is not there. But the evidence for us to survive through the tribulations and then see Christ is there. And so that's where we're going to come from. I believe, and this is what I'm doing, Eric, I am preparing my home to be a safe haven always. Consecutively, though, I don't know what the right word is, but at the same time, I'm also setting up backup plans in case I have to move, in case I have to go somewhere else. A lot of people will talk about that as your bug out location, right? I look at it more like, if I can't stay here, where do I go? And I look at my planning in the aspect of, if I have to leave the city and it's short term, I go to X location with relative so-and-so, and we pre-plan it. If I have to leave the state, I go to X location with such and such relative or friend, and we pre-plan that. And so we have those contingency plans, but I don't think it's a one or the other. I think it's planned for both, but build your fortifications around keeping yourself and your family safe more than anything. And then just dive into that relationship with God, because he will direct you in what you should be doing.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Totally agree. If you should stay at home and that's the best thing for you, God will help you with that. If the best thing for you is to bug out and move to a different location, he'll help you with that as well. Who is it that we I'm trying to think of his name. Is it who constantly comments here that he's mobile? So he doesn't have a bug out location. He has multiple bug out locations and he's mobile. So that's his plan. And
I think
I'm
it
trying
was
to think of
practical. Isn't it practical?
practical. Yes, practical. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, if you're on here regularly, he's on here all the time, and he's happy to talk about that. So
One
Yeah.
scripture
that could be a plan. Yeah.
One scripture that I use when people ask me about the tribulations is there's a scripture in Revelations chapter 7, and it says, "And one of the elders answered, saying unto me," this is verse 13, "What are these which are arrayed in white robes, and whence came they? And I said unto him, Sir, thou knowest. And he said unto me, These are they which came out of great tribulation, and have washed their robes and made them white in the blood of the Lamb."
Mm-hmm.
To me, that says that if I want to be one of these that's arrayed in the white robes, that's bowing to the Lamb, is that I have come out of great tribulation. That doesn't mean you
Come
avoided
through
it.
it.
That means you came through
Yeah.
it. Like you
Mhm.
went through the tribulation and you survived. You remained true and faithful through the tribulation. And so that's one of the scriptures that I look to when I have people talk to me about the idea of a rapture. I do believe that at some point when the Lord comes in glory to redeem his saints, that it does say in the scriptures, we'll be caught up to meet him. But that's pretty much, if you really follow the timeline, more often than not, it becomes evident that that's after significant tribulations, and he's kind of figured out who's going to be true and faithful to him. And then those that are left are the ones that get to have the white robes and get caught up with him.
Yeah, it's having to go through that refiner's fire to be purified, right? And so I think it would be nice if we were lifted up out of all the trials that all the difficulties that are coming, because it's going to be bad. It's going to be terrible. And so why wouldn't our Heavenly Father want to save us from that? Because he loves us. Kind of like I was talking about. I can't do everything for my kids. They've got to go through the hard times. They've got to learn for themselves. Of course, it's going to be a lot more intense when we going through this fire. And everybody's fire is going to be different, right? We learn at different rates. We learn different ways. So if we can learn more quickly, then hopefully we won't have to go through as intensive of a firing process, right?
That's what I see. When I'm going through a trial, I pray to God. I say, please, Father in heaven, please help me learn the lesson fast so the class can be over.
Well, I look at it this way because I'm a knucklehead. I love understanding how a silversmith does their job, a refiner of silver. They watch the whole time. They put the silver in the fire and they watch, and they have to watch it because it's such a specific process. Whatever elements are in the silver that need to be cleaned out, they've got to scrape off the dross, which is basically, you'll find there's certain things will rise to the top. You scrape those off. Other things will burn out completely.
Impurities,
the impurities. And basically, when the silver's ready when they can see their reflection in it. And so Jesus is putting us through those trials. He's putting us in the refiner fire. He knows what needs to be burned out, and he's watching. He's never leaving us alone. And he'll pull us out of the fire when it's time. And I find great comfort in that. And I find great comfort in aligning my religious beliefs and my understanding with who God is and my relationship with him and his son, Jesus Christ, and the importance of preparedness in my life as a mechanism of safety and preservation of my legacy for my family, which is my kids, the love I have for them, and my relationship with God. And that, to me, is greater than any legacy of, like, you can look back through the history of the world, and there were some extremely wealthy people. And wealth comes and goes. But legacy, the things that are important, the philosophies, they come and go. But the truth, they stay and they remain. And so if your legacy is one of truth, man, I think that's a good place to be.
Oh yeah. I think that
Well, guys
it's
and gals, we
important.
promised today would be 30 minutes.
Yeah, we
It'd
heard
be
that.
No,
a shorter one.
I was just going to say I think it's important for us to just take a deep breath. You know, today is a day for love, and I hope that you're showing and expressing love to those that are in your closest circles. I hope that you're taking time to really let them know how much you appreciate them. For us guys, it's not always that easy to communicate our feelings, and I hope that that you take the time to do that, because women love hearing how much. That's one of their, I hope one thing that how about this? If you have a chance, go to 5lovelanguages.com. I think it's what it is, and take the love languages quiz. Find out what kind of, type in love language free quiz and figure out what you are. If you're a gift giver, if you're a quality timer, if you're a physical toucher, you're a, whatever you are, find out those love languages with your significant other, with your sweetheart, and go and try to talk to each other in your love languages. And I'll end with that. That's my advice for the night. Go do it.
All right. Well, thank you guys for tuning into this episode. We appreciate you guys being part of the audience, part of the family. If you want more interaction and you want to get more questions answered quicker, jump into our Facebook group. It's Emergency Prep and Self-Reliance. Also, be sure to go to preppertalkradio.com and make sure you subscribe. We've got emails that are coming out all the time with different things that can help you, events that we'll be at, just a lot of great content, and then reminders on cool videos that we've done that could answer some of those questions as well. So have a great night. Stay focused, stay ready-minded, and keep that head on a swivel. Catch you next time.
See you next week.